Okay, welcome to Teach Online TV. My name is Tyler Basu, and I am here with Marc Mawhinney, who is joining me from, where are you anyway? I forgot to ask.
Online, because of course coaches were all over the world, but technically I'm stationed in New Brunswick on the East Coast here in Canada.
Okay,
so
I'm in
the
Canadian.
lovely Great White North, but my part of the country is much whiter than your part of the country on the West Coast.
Yeah, exactly. And you've got the extreme weather. We're pretty spoiled with the mild weather over here.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, but we got two Canadians on the call today. That's awesome. So, Marc, you have been working with coaches for several years. You help coaches grow their businesses. You've got a podcast, Not Natural Born Coaches. You've had the privilege of publishing, I think, right around 500 interviews or 500 episodes for your podcast. And you've been in conversations with over 1,000 coaches over the years, both online and offline. So you've got a lot of expertise with helping coaches grow their businesses, the challenges that come with that, different ways that they can scale their business and create different offers for their clients. And so we're going to be chatting about not just growing a coaching business, but how to add online courses into a coaching business, how to make it a part of that coaching model, and some of the steps involved in that. So, Marc, thank you so much for taking the time to do this, first of all, and I'm excited to dive into this topic with you.
Well, no, thanks for having me, Tyler. Actually, I'm talking to over 1,000 coaches every year, so it feels like even more sometimes with everything going on, but I'm looking forward to getting into this topic because it's something that's constantly coming up when I'm talking with coaches and with clients and stuff, so it should be fun.
And just to get, I guess, a bit of clarity, I suppose, the coaches that you work with, these are all types of coaches. I mean, these aren't just marketing coaches. They're not just business coaches. I mean, you've worked with coaches pretty much across any spectrum, any area of life, any possible way that they could help someone. Am I correct?
Yeah, the really cool thing with what I do is there's a lot of similarities between coaches regardless of the niche that they're in. So you could have a coach who's, let's say, a health coach, and then another one who's a relationship coach, but they've got the same challenges and a lot of the same ways that they can get business as well. So a lot of what I do, it's with different niches right across the board there. And same thing when you look at my podcast with all those episodes, it's a very broad range of coaches who've been on the show, but they all have similar challenges and advice that can work for people across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I wanted to jump into two major challenges, and I'm sure that you could give me a long list of the different challenges that coaches face, but two in particular is for a coach that's just getting started. The biggest challenge is often getting clients. But then there comes a point when they have all the clients that they can work with, and the challenge becomes, how can I grow my business? I'm already, I'm tapped out. I'm all my time is being traded with serving these clients. So what do they do then? So if we could address those two phases, let's start with the first phase of a new coach just getting started. They have a couple of clients, or maybe they're doing it part-time. What are some of the best ways that they can go from part-time to full-time and fill their calendar with one-on-one client work?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that conundrum that coaches have. It's similar to what real estate agents have. I think you have a real estate background too, if I'm not mistaken, and I do as well. And the old saying with real estate when I was back in that game was, for agents, real estate agents, you either had a ton of time and no money, or a lot of money and no time, and it was a tough challenge. And that's the same way in a lot of ways with coaches, is it's either time or money. It's tough to have, both of those. So it's interesting, as the longer I'm in it, I'm seeing more and more similarities with real estate and some other businesses as well. But the challenge that you mentioned for coaches to go from part-time to full-time is, I think first things first, they have to recognize that, hey, this is a process that's going to take a little while, despite all the ads that you're seeing on Facebook and the big promises and, make 7 figures in a month. I'll show you how with my super secret ninja funnel and and all this other stuff. It's probably not going to work like that, and you just have to be patient. So the way that I built my coaching business was, I had a sales position when I started my coaching business, and I juggled both of them. And luckily my sales position was flexible enough that I worked from home, and I could build my coaching business as well. And I built up to the point where my coaching passed my sales income, and I made the jump. That's the ultimate position that you're in. But even if you're working 9 to 5, you could still make it work. It's just, you got to I've always said you could build a coaching business part-time, but you got to put full-time effort into the time when you're working. So I know coaches that can get more done in 20 hours working if they're highly disciplined and putting the effort in, as opposed to coaches that just do coaching full time and they're working 80 to 90 hours a week. But there's a lot of time spent on Farmville and checking out who won the Oscars last night and talking about reality shows and stuff.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point that what we do with the time that we invest in our business is more important than how much time we invest in our business. Now, so in your experience, what are some of those key activities, those few things that a coach can focus on that really moves their business forward? And if those are the things that they should be spending the majority of their time doing, and everything else can come later or be delegated or they can get help with or something like that.
Well, I think the name of the game is to get as many conversations going directly with people as possible. So when I say conversations, I don't mean tweets being sent back and forth or, a comment on a Facebook post or whatever, although those can lead to deeper conversations. I think the name of the game is to get face-to-face like you and I are doing now on Skype or on phone or however you're doing it, Zoom or whatever. I think that not that it can't happen. You can get clients that reach out and say, hey, I want to hire you, and they pay you and everything's fine. That's happened to me plenty of times. But for the most part, I arrange a conversation with someone just to see if it's the right fit, because I want to, besides them checking me out to make sure it's the right fit, I'm also checking them out to make sure that they're the ideal client. So I think coaches have to be front and center, talking to people as much as possible. And I can usually tell how well a coach is going to do by the number of discovery calls or strategy sessions that they have per week. If you only have one every week or one every 2 weeks, that's probably not enough. You don't have enough coming in. And you have to have more of those. And I think that that's something a lot of coaches are forgetting. They're spending all their time in the daytime working on the banner on their website or dressing up a PDF or frigging around with their business cards, and they're not actually out in the battlefield where that's where all the action happens and all the results happen as well. And I think that's a big mistake.
Yeah. And, I've spoken to quite a few coaches over the years, and especially online course creators, and I see a similarity because not all of them come from like a business or a marketing background where they know the game. They know how the game is played. It's a numbers game. A certain number of conversations leads to a certain number of sales down the line, and it's like a funnel. It's a process, right? I learned that doing door-to-door sales when I first got out of college. I knocked on a lot of doors every day, went through a lot of rejection to get a few sales. And so I learned to get over that fear. But a lot of coaches, consultants who they don't have the sales or the marketing background, they just want to help people. So that whole sales thing can be a little bit uncomfortable for them. So what do you typically say to coaches who you're encouraging them to get into conversations, ultimately sales conversations where the goal is to figure out if the person they're talking to can be a client or not, if it's a good fit for both of them. But they've got, something going on in their mind that's bringing resistance or making them resist that process. So what can you say to help them overcome that resistance they may be feeling?
Well, I think a big part of it is probably what you found when you're doing door-to-door sales is it's always harder to do those first couple door knocks. So me, back in my real estate days, when I was a chipper, young, 21-year-old whippersnapper, I did a lot of phone prospecting back then with expired listings and stuff. And I always found it was the first couple calls of the day. I did 20 calls a day. But if I was doing 20 calls a day, I knew I'd be good. And it was always those first couple calls that they were tough, just to get into that flow. But then you couldn't get me off the phone after I got going with a bunch of them because I'm like, man, this is fun. I want to keep going. You get into that groove. And it's the same way I find with coaches is it's those first couple conversations that take a little while. And then once they get going with it, like, oh, this is fun. I'm not as bad at this as I thought I was. And the key is just to push them into the deep end of the pool. I view myself kind of like an annoying parent with, a kid that doesn't want to swim. And you just, instead of dipping their toe in or whatever, I just shove them into the pool and say, here you go, learn how to swim. But they usually learn how to swim and it works out very well for them. So I know a lot of people say, oh, that's not what a coach should do. A coach shouldn't push and all that stuff. But I view my role as a coach as, hey, I'm here to keep you accountable. I'm here to encourage action. And if you don't like me for doing something, I'm doing my job. I'd rather do that than hold back just so you're in your safe zone and you're not pushing ahead.
Yeah, yeah. And you brought up a good point of, knowing how many calls you would need to make each day and doing that consistently. As long as you kept that consistent, you knew that you'd be okay because you were always filling your pipeline with potential clients. I think another mistake that, coaches could make is once they've got a bunch of clients, they stop doing the thing that got them the clients in the first place. And then if they lose a couple of clients, all of a sudden they're scrambling to try to get new ones because they stopped filling the pipeline with potential clients. But let's move forward a little bit in a coach's business. Let's say they've been getting in conversations regularly. They're now working with as many clients as they can handle. They filled their calendar. Where do they go from there? If they want to grow their business or scale their business or reach more people, but they're tapped out in the number of hours that they're working. What then are some of the ways that they could grow their business at that point?
Well, I know you're obviously a big fan of online programs, so that's usually the natural progression after. That's exactly what I did. What a lot of my coaches are doing that I'm working with is you fill up your one-to-one, then you got your group offerings that you're maybe working with a small group of 5 people or whatever at a time. But even that, it's tough to get complete leverage because you're still face-to-face, even with groups. So then you get into the online programs, where it's something that's being delivered by, a great program or platform like Thinkific, which I use. And that was a big change for me, which started to get me away from the dependence on the one-on-one and groups. You could do other things as well. I mean, I've got a print newsletter that I just launched. Secret Coach Club, it's called secretcoachclub.com. I'll get a shameless plug in, but that's something that I do that gives me a degree of flexibility and freedom as well, with people in there. So I think the key is to not try to do 50 things. I have probably 5 or 6 baskets in my coaching business, but you need to have more than one, because if you're relying just on one-on-one, it's going to be tough if you go through those dry spells like you talked about.
Right. And I think another thing with the one-on-one is that it does require you to be there to trade your time. And obviously there's a ceiling on how much time we've got to serve people, each week. Another thing, another way I suppose that somebody could grow their business or generate more income is at that point maybe raise their prices too. When do you think is an appropriate time to say, raise your price, or what are your thoughts on pricing in general for coaches?
Well, the proper time for most coaches is probably today, because most coaches are too low. I hate to see coaches charging peanuts or even working for free, which I see a lot out there, and I just try to scare coaches away from that. So we could do a 5-hour show probably talking about the mindset blocks with coaches and charging what they're worth, but in my experience, most coaches could at least double their pricing and still be too low. So I'll give you an example. A little over a year ago, but roughly 15 months ago, I did a virtual summit where I was hosting 21 panelists, and it was based around increasing coaching fees. It was called the Command Higher Coaching Fees Summit. And after I got done talking to 21 of these experts, I got thinking, maybe I should increase my fees. Now, my fees were already high compared to the average coach, but I knew in the back of my mind I could bump them up more. And there was a little bit of hesitation, but I said, you know what, I'm a hypocrite where I've been interviewing 21 people. I've been just getting it drilled into my brain about increasing your fees. You know what, I'm worth more. Screw it, I'm going to double my fees. And then I crossed my fingers and prayed that I wouldn't be living under a bridge in a cardboard box or something, And I'm happy to report that it worked out. Actually, my client roster had very little turnover. What turnover was there was replaced by people at the higher pricing and better, I would venture to say, better type of clients as well, people who are more committed. So it's just the toughest person when it comes to convincing, for the price increase. You're not trying to convince the marketplace. The toughest person to convince is actually the guy or the gal in the mirror.
Right. That's a really good point. And in regards to pricing, when you're charging for the one-on-one service, I think that it makes sense to charge a very high price point because, again, there's a limit on how much time you have. When you're giving your time to help somebody one-on-one, you're giving up time that you could have spent doing something that impacts more people. And we know creating an online course, for example, or productizing your process, your knowledge, some of the things that you teach your clients how to do, if you were to put that into a digital product, the digital product can reach more people. Maybe they don't get the one-on-one attention, or at least not to the same extent, but you're now leveraging yourself, you're separating your earning potential from your time, because you can sell a digital product over and over and over and over again. You can have 100 people sign up for your online course. It doesn't take any more time than having one person in your online course, because you already created the course. But I want to talk about some of the things that are maybe preventing coaches from taking that step. You know, they're so used to working one-on-one. They see the logic in creating a digital product because it helps them scale their business. It helps them leverage their time. It helps them reach more people. But they've got a few concerns. Now, and we were chatting with this just before we got on the call. One of the concerns is perfectionism, and I want to get into that in a moment. But another one is, if the course is less expensive than the coaching, what if a coach is, you know, concerned or afraid that, well, they'll lose clients, they'll lose one-on-one clients if they see an online course as the alternative, as, you know, a less expensive alternative to the coaching. Is there a way to, you know, position them both a certain way? Are they meant for different people, or is there a way to use your course to complement your existing one-on-one service? Like, how do you integrate an online course into a primarily service-based one-on-one business?
Right. Well, I would actually flip the script, and I would tell someone if they're hesitant about losing clients because they're thinking, oh, well, what if they don't hire me? They just get my online program. I would say that you're actually going to get probably more one-on-one or direct, say, group clients from people who buy your program first. That's happened to me. People who've gone through my program, they get to know me. They feel like they know me through 8 weekly modules. For one of my programs is 8 weeks, and they feel like they know me by the end of it, and then they've hired me afterwards. So that's the flip side of it. The other thing that you can do, which I've done, is my one-on-one fees are quite high. You know, I'm not the cheapest guy around. I've actually included my online program for your first 5 clients as a bonus for people who hire me for one-on-one, and my group program too. So there's a nice little bonus that you can say to someone, hey, look, you hire me one-on-one to reinforce the stuff we're talking about. I'll give you free access to my program, which is usually $500 or whatever. That's the price of my online program. So that's the other advantage with it. That online program has gotten me clients even indirectly, not just the sales and revenue that have come from it, but also from extra one-on-one and group clients I've gotten from it.
Okay. No, I like those approaches. So for the people who are paying premium to work with you one-on-one, you give them access to your course included.
I create a promo code for them, like a special promo code, which you can do in Thinkific. And then when they go to the checkout, they plug the promo code in. It drops the price down to $0. They're happy. I'm happy. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, and then your course kind of complements, you know, what you provide on a one-on-one basis. But at the same time, it can be a part of your sales funnel. I mean, you can take people from reading your blog or buying your book to promoting your course. Maybe your course is a few $100, and out of all the people who take your course, some of them decide, hey, I want to work with this guy one-on-one. Like, I got so much value from the course, I want the one-on-one attention now to help me implement, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think too many coaches, or not just coaches, anyone doing online programs, they overthink it way too much. It goes back to that perfectionism. But I've had clients who they're trying to set up all these scripts. They got the papers taped around, you know, the wall and next to their computer, and they're trying to get every word perfect, and then they mess up a word, so they have to reshoot this video, and it takes them a day to do one 5-minute intro video, and they just drive themselves crazy. So for me, excuse me, I'm fighting off a cold here. What I found with my first full-fledged online program, the first few videos, I was kind of like that. I wanted to be perfect stuff. But as I got rolling, I was just like, one take, bang, you know, it's in the can, let's move on. And then there's a little bit of light editing, but don't overthink it, because if you do that, you're going to drive yourself crazy, and it'll never be perfect. You know, you'll have other programs down the road which you can improve on it, and you'll be better, but just get it out there. Don't overthink it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you know, one of the things with online training is you can always go back and update a training, revise it later. I think it's more important to just ship something, launch something, get it out there, get people going through it, get the feedback. And if you happen to get a little bit of negative feedback, or somebody says, you know, I couldn't really hear you in that particular training, or that point wasn't very clear, then maybe you go back and you update it. But yeah, I think not letting perfectionism stop somebody from creating their first product in the first place is a really good point that you brought up.
And you don't have to have it 100% complete either. So now this would apply if you're dripping out your content, of course. Like one of my programs is 8 weeks, where once a week they get a module sent to them. If they're supposed to get everything sent all at once, then of course you need to have everything done. But with my program, I didn't have all 8 modules finished. I had probably 2 or 3 modules complete, and then the other modules I had a little bit into them. But my whole thing was maybe, I don't know, 40% done, 30% done or so. And then I had to just cross my fingers and hope I didn't get hit by a bus crossing the street or something. And then, I'd be in trouble. But I was able to stay ahead of the people, because the first people that bought, I knew I'd have basically 8 weeks to complete it, and I'd fill in those blanks.
And another thing I wanted to chat about was the opportunity to do a bit of market research and validate your topic. And I think coaches are, in particular, they have an advantage over a lot of other online course creators, because we've seen people go from having an idea to their course and then going and jumping straight to creating their course, and then figuring out after the fact that it wasn't the best fit for their market, or they didn't touch on certain topics that their audience would have wanted them to touch on, because they skipped the part of actually having conversations with their target audience, with their ideal clients, and figuring out what they would want in an online course. So I think a coach has a head start, because they're in conversation with their clients every day already. They're probably noticing a lot of patterns. They're touching on the same topics. They're answering the same questions over and over again. So I think that they've got a bit of a leg up, because they already have they've got a topic validated already. I mean, people are paying them for coaching on a certain area of their life or a certain aspect of their life. And so they've got the framework to then go ahead and create the curriculum for their course. Have you found that to be true? Has it been for the coaches who have decided to go ahead and create a course? Was coming up with their content much of a challenge for them? I mean, because they already spent so much time speaking with clients, I would imagine maybe it wasn't as challenging for other course creators who didn't have any one-on-one time with their target audience at first.
I think that they think it's going to be harder than it is, because I've had coaches say, I have no clue what to do for a program. So we hash it out. We brainstorm on a call just like this, and we come up with the topic, and they say, well, I couldn't possibly do much on that. I said, okay, well, let's go. And we divvy it up into the main headings for each of the modules, and then we're able to come up with maybe 5 or 10 subheadings. There's your program right there. And as you're going through your program, you're recording videos and stuff. You're going to think, oh, I should add this, or, maybe I'll take this out and I'll add this. And it gets easier, but the biggest key is just to get started with it. And then all these ideas are going to come racing in, to your brain. Your brain's like a radar. Once you get doing online programs, it's going to be receiving all this stuff.
So Mark, we've got a few more minutes here, and I want to thank you, because you're sharing so much value with us here. And this is a topic that I know a lot of our customers and of course your audience of coaches I think are going to get a lot of value from. Are there any specific challenges, blockers, mistakes to avoid? Anything we haven't touched on yet that a coach who wants to create an online course, how can we help them overcome some of the blockers that might happen in that process?
One of the big blocks, I think, is coaches feel that they have to cram as much as humanly possible into this program. So it's kind of like you have a box that's like this size, and you're trying to cram all this stuff into it, and it's overflowing. And I would say that it should be quality over quantity. So I'm sure I made that mistake in my early programs as well, where I felt like, oh, I got to throw in all this stuff to justify the price, and I'll throw in this and I'll throw in that. It doesn't always work that way. So I purchased a program for someone who's actually a great guy. He knows his stuff, and he almost knows too much stuff because he threw so much into it that I ended up just kind of giving up on it. I moved on, honestly. And he asked me, like, how are you making out? Because he could see my percentage through the different program. I said, I'll be honest, man, there's too much in there. Like, I'm really busy. I got this going on, and, I'll have to get back to it. And I've never gone back to it. And that's the reason why there's just too much in. So I'm in the process now of creating a new program, and I'm being very conscious of the fact that I don't want to just cram everything in just to try justify it. I'm all about results for people, and I don't want people to be looking like the customers to look like deer caught in headlights with too much stuff coming at them. And that's the problem that we all have nowadays online, is there's so much information being heaped at us that it's really difficult to sort out the good stuff from the not so good stuff, and we get really overwhelmed. So that's a big problem and a big block there, is don't just cram everything in possible. You could probably split your program into a couple different programs, but make sure that it's clean, clear, and concise.
I think that the value of a course is absolutely not tied to the length of the course. If somebody wants to charge a higher price point for their course, maybe $500, $1,000 or more, they think it needs to be really long. But they're forgetting that an online course is supposed to be the shortcut for your target audience. You're teaching somebody how to do something, how to get from A to B. You're supposed to teach them that as quickly and as efficiently as possible, without leaving out important information, but also at the same time not putting in too much, not stuffing it with too much fluff or too much stuff that's not relevant. And if you really and truly have so much content, as you said, maybe just break it up into different courses. Here's the introductory one, here's the intermediate one, here's the advanced one, or you come up with multiple programs instead of one big monster that nobody's gonna finish. Cool. Well, Marc, this has been a pleasure. I really appreciate it. And I just have one last question for you as we wrap up here, because you're somebody that you've built a great personal brand. You've built a business as a coach, as a podcaster, with online courses. You're somebody that's been sharing your knowledge with other people in different ways and in different forms. And you've been able to impact a lot of lives by doing so. So I'm just curious, why did you decide, because I know you're in real estate before, so why did you decide to get into this space? Why did you decide to build a business around coaching people, sharing your knowledge, creating digital products, publishing information online, all that kind of stuff? Why did you decide to get into this, and what kind of an impact has it made on your life, would you say?
Well, there wasn't any grand master plan, to be honest. I mentioned that I was in real estate for over a decade, starting when I was 21. And make a long story short, I went through a business closure that basically I was just burnt out, tired of real estate, wasn't enjoying it. And I said, I got to do something else. And I didn't realize it at the time, but now that I look at it, I'd actually been coaching for years when I was in real estate, building my team and coaching my agents, employees, and all that stuff. And I'd always been just hooked on personal development, like I'm sure you are. Anything I could get my hands on, I wanted to do with personal development. So it was staring me right in the face, but I don't think that technology and everything had met at that time, like back in, say, 2009 and 2010 when I was going through business stumbles. But by the time I launched my coaching business was beginning of 2014, then it seemed like coaching became much more mainstream. It's gone even further nowadays where, people, back when I started, there were a lot of people who are like, what do you mean you're a coach? Is it athletics or what? They just didn't get it. I'm talking like it was way back when, 2014, but it's true. And that's how I got into it. I wanted to build a business. I thought this is a business that can help people, and what a great business to be in. And I love all the other stuff too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the freedom. I love the revenue potential that's out there and all that other stuff. But this is a great business for an entrepreneur. And that's what I am at heart. I'm an entrepreneur. I couldn't do a 9 to 5. So coaching is great for me.
That's awesome. Well, Marc, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And if our audience wants to get in touch with you, listen to your podcast, check out some of the training and resources you put together, where is the best place that we can send them?
Best spot is naturalborncoaches.com. I mentioned earlier seekercoachclub.com is my new venture there with my print newsletter for coaches. And then I have a Facebook group called The Coaching Jungle. And if you go to thecoachingjungle.com, that'll take you there. And we've got almost 5,000 coaches in there today, and tons of great knowledge and information being shared.
That's awesome. Well, I'll make sure that we include the links to those below the video.
Cool.
Thank you, Marc. Wish you all the best.
Okay, thanks, Tyler.